The oak-paneled boardroom hummed with a tension thick enough to carve. 11 pairs of eyes, ranging from nervous to resigned, were fixed on Eleanor Vance. Her gaze, a steely blue, swept over the quarterly projections displayed on the smart screen, a faint tremor in the data points signifying a dip in the South American market. "Explain this," she commanded, her voice cutting through the hushed air like a sharpened blade. Her finger, adorned with a single platinum band, tapped the screen. "The proposed solution is a 10% reduction in our regional marketing spend. This is not a solution. It's a bandage on a gaping wound." Caleb, the head of global marketing, shifted uncomfortably. "Eleanor, we believe a more aggressive approach risks alienating—" "Alienating who, Caleb? The competition? Our shareholders?" Eleanor leaned forward, her perfectly tailored charcoal suit jacket creasing subtly. "Vance Corp doesn't believe. Vance Corp acts." "We will initiate a 25% reduction in the South American division's operational budget, effective immediately. Furthermore, we will reallocate all remaining marketing resources to the emerging Asian markets. The projected Q3 growth in that sector justifies the investment. Any objections?" Her stare dared anyone to speak. Silence reigned. "Good. Get it done." The meeting concluded with the same abrupt efficiency with which it had begun. Later, as the city lights began to twinkle outside her penthouse office window, Eleanor ran a hand over the cool glass. Sentimentality was a luxury she could not afford, especially not in a company founded on the principle of relentless expansion. The bottom line wasn't just a number. It was the pulse of Vance Corp, a living entity that demanded unwavering discipline. Employees were assets, valuable components in a larger, intricate machine. Their purpose was to contribute to the machine's optimal function, not to introduce unpredictable variables like personal needs or emotional appeals. Policies were the gears, meticulously crafted to ensure smooth, predictable operation. Deviations were inefficiencies, and inefficiency was a cancer she would excise without hesitation. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her assistant, Sarah, entered, looking flustered. "Ms. Vance, I apologize, but my son has a high fever. The sitter just called, and I need to—" Eleanor turned, her expression unyielding. "Sarah, your shift ends at 7. It is currently 6:45. Is the Q4 report filed?" Sarah's shoulders slumped. "Almost, but—" "Then finish it. Vance Corp policy dictates that all tasks assigned for the day are completed before departure. Personal emergencies are not exceptions to company policy. The report is due by close of business." Her tone left no room for appeal. Sarah's face, etched with a mixture of distress and defeat, was a familiar sight. Eleanor simply watched her retreat, the soft click of the door marking the return to her solitary dominion. The diligent father. The fluorescent lights hummed a steady, lonely drone above Mark Jensen's desk. It was past 7, and the accounting department at Vance Corp was a silent expanse, save for the rhythmic clicking of his keyboard. 9 years. 9 years he had given to this company, meticulously balancing ledgers, forecasting budgets, and dissecting quarterly reports until the numbers sang a clear, coherent tune. He double-checked the final Q3 projections, a complex tapestry of figures he'd woven, ensuring every thread was perfect, every calculation unimpeachable. His work was a quiet testament to his precision, a silent promise kept to himself and to the demanding standards of Vance Corp. A faint smile touched his lips as his gaze drifted to a small, laminated drawing tucked beneath his monitor. A stick figure with wild red hair, holding the hand of a taller, more stoic figure. "Me and Daddy," Lily had proudly declared, presenting it to him with a gap-toothed grin. Lily. Her name was a warmth in his chest, a constant, gentle current beneath the surface of his disciplined life. He remembered this morning, the soft weight of her head against his shoulder as he braided her hair for school, the sleepy murmur of her voice asking about her day, his own promise to read her favorite space book tonight. Being a single father wasn't just a role. It was the core of him, the unwavering anchor in his life. Every late night, every perfectly balanced sheet, every early morning rush was for her, a brick laid in the foundation of their small, secure world. He pulled up his attendance record, a digital scroll of flawless consistency stretching back years. Not a single sick day, not a late arrival, not an absence. It was a point of quiet pride, not a boast, but a confirmation of his unwavering reliability. He was the man who showed up, who delivered, who never faltered. A sense of responsibility, deep and unyielding, settled over him. He closed the spreadsheet, powered down his computer, and gathered his things. The silence of the office amplified the soft rustle of his jacket. He was tired, but the thought of Lily waiting for him filled him with a renewed purpose. He locked his office door, the click echoing in the deserted corridor, and stepped out into the cool evening air, ready to transition from dedicated employee to devoted father. The night held a different kind of balance he was eager to keep. A simple request. The fluorescent lights of Vance Corp hummed their usual monotonous tune as Mark Jensen meticulously reviewed the final figures for the quarterly report. 9 years of unwavering dedication, never a missed deadline, never a sick day that wasn't immediately made up. He smoothed the edges of the crisp white form he'd held onto all morning. A request for a single day off. His heart hammered a rhythm against his ribs that felt strangely out of sync with the quiet office. He'd typed out his reasoning with careful precision. To attend daughter Lily Jensen's inaugural school play, The Whispering Woods. Performance details attached. He even included a detailed schedule of how he'd front-loaded his work, ensuring absolutely no disruption to his tasks. Swallowing hard, Mark rose and walked the familiar path to Eleanor Vance's executive assistant's desk, placing the form gently on the polished mahogany. "For Ms. Vance, please," he murmured, his voice a little hoarse. "It's for the 23rd. Later that afternoon, the same form lay on Eleanor Vance's imposing desk. She picked it up with a delicate, almost clinical touch, her eyes scanning Mark's neat handwriting. "Jensen? A day off?" A faint, almost imperceptible frown creased her brow. Her internal monologue was swift and unyielding. "Company policy is clear. Unscheduled leave is disruptive. Performance reviews and attendance records are paramount. Personal events cannot supersede corporate responsibilities." Her gaze drifted to the attached program for The Whispering Woods, a children's play, frivolous. Her lips thinned into a resolute line. The chime of Eleanor's interoffice communication system pierced the late afternoon quiet. "Mark Jensen, please report to my office," her assistant's voice, crisp and unyielding, announced. Mark felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He'd hoped for an email, at least. He walked into the assistant's antechamber, where the woman sat, her expression devoid of warmth. "Ms. Vance has reviewed your request, Mr. Jensen," she stated, her voice flat. She pushed the crumpled form back across the desk towards him. "It has been denied." Her exact words were, "Unacceptable. Company policy dictates strict adherence to work schedules. Any absence on the 23rd will be considered unexcused and will result in disciplinary action." The air seemed to grow heavy, pressing down on Mark. His meticulously planned day, Lily's shining moment, all dissolving into Eleanor's cold, dismissive words. He picked up the rejected form, its corners now bent, feeling a cold dread seep into his bones. The choice. The vibrant crayon drawing, a lopsided sun, a stick figure clutching an oversized balloon, lay on the kitchen counter, a bright, searing reminder. Lily's scrawled signature, barely decipherable, was underlined with 3 hearts. Mark's thumb traced one, the glossy paper cool beneath his skin. Eleanor's curt email, denying his day-off request, replayed in his mind, each word a percussive blow. Operational necessity. Your presence is required. This wasn't mere inconvenience. It felt like a direct assault on the promise he'd made to Lily, to attend her school's annual Parent Palooza, her first big performance. A thick, icy dread washed over him. His career, the stability he'd painstakingly rebuilt after Sarah's death, now felt like a fragile pane of glass, poised to shatter. He closed his eyes, picturing Eleanor's unyielding gaze, the way she'd dismissed his 9 years of perfect attendance as utterly insignificant. "One day," he murmured, the words tasting like ash. "One single day for my daughter." When he opened his eyes, the drawing still radiated an innocent joy, starkly at odds with his internal maelstrom. This wasn't merely about a day off. It was about Lily. Her face beaming with anticipation as she described her part, a singing tree. Her happiness, so pure and unburdened, served as his life's unwavering anchor. Everything else suddenly felt secondary, brittle, and inconsequential. "No," he whispered, the decision crystallizing within him. The company, Eleanor, the looming fallout, it all receded, replaced by the vivid image of Lily's hopeful eyes. He wouldn't let her down. Not for a job, not for anything. He would face the consequences, whatever they entailed. He would stand firm. Later that evening, after her bath, Lily skipped into the living room, her damp curls framing her face. "Daddy, are you coming to Parent Palooza?" she chirped, her voice a hopeful melody. Mark knelt, pulling her into a tight embrace, inhaling the sweet scent of strawberry shampoo. "Yes, sweet pea," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Her face ignited, brilliant as a miniature sun. She squeezed him back, a small, powerful hug. "Yay!" she cheered, pulling away to perform a joyful little jig. Mark watched her, a quiet strength settling deep in his chest. The path ahead might be rocky, but witnessing her unadulterated joy, he knew he'd made the only choice that truly mattered. The termination. The crisp ring of the intercom startled Eleanor, breaking the silence of her meticulously organized office. "Ms. Vance, Mark Jensen is not at his desk this morning," her assistant's voice stated, devoid of inflection. Eleanor's jaw tightened. She leaned forward, pressing the talk button with a decisive click. "Confirmed absent, then?" "Yes, Ms. Vance. He hasn't responded to calls or emails." A cold satisfaction bloomed in Eleanor's chest. "Very well. Draft a termination letter from Mark Jensen, effective immediately. State gross insubordination and neglect of duties as the primary reasons." Her voice was steady, unwavering, a testament to her resolve. This wasn't about vindictiveness. It was about upholding the standards she had painstakingly built. A company couldn't function if employees believed they could disregard policy without consequence. Her father had instilled that discipline in her, a hard lesson learned through years of observing his unwavering leadership. She was merely following his example, ensuring the machinery of their enterprise ran smoothly, without sentimental clogs. She leaned back, her gaze sweeping over the panoramic city view outside her window. The city, a sprawling testament to ambition and order, mirrored her own philosophy. There was no room for exceptions, no space for individual whims to disrupt the collective rhythm. Mark Jensen had made his choice, and now he would face the consequences. This was just business, a necessary excision to maintain the health of the whole. She felt a surge of professional pride, a silent commendation for her own decisive leadership. Miles away, the vibrant notes of a flute soared through the ornate theater, weaving a tapestry of sound that held Mark and Lily captive. Lily, her small hand nestled in his, leaned forward, her eyes wide with wonder as the dancers twirled across the stage. A genuine smile softened Mark's face, a rare sight in recent weeks. He squeezed Lily's hand gently, her infectious joy washing away the gnawing dread of yesterday. The world outside the velvet seats and gilded proscenium arch seemed to fade, replaced by the magic unfolding before them. For this brief, precious moment, the weight of responsibility and the looming shadow of his denied request were forgotten. He was simply a father, sharing a moment of pure delight with his daughter, utterly unaware that the delicate balance of his life had already begun to crumble, dictated by a cold voice and a decisive click. The Gala and the Glimpse. The ballroom of the Grand Hyatt shimmered, a symphony of hushed conversations and clinking crystal. Eleanor, resplendent in an emerald gown that caught the ambient light with every subtle movement, navigated the throng with practiced ease. Her smile, a carefully cultivated blend of warmth and professionalism, never wavered as she exchanged pleasantries with city council members, venture capitalists, and the usual philanthropic elite. Each handshake, each brief, sparkling interaction was a strategic move, a quiet affirmation of her place, a silent plea for a nod of approval from the man who mattered most tonight. Her father, Richard Vance, chairman of the Vance Group, was the gravitational center of this opulent universe. She scanned the sea of faces, searching for his distinguished profile amidst the laughter and the low hum of a string quartet. He was usually easy to spot, a beacon of composed authority, often surrounded by a deferential circle of admirers. Tonight, however, it took her longer. He wasn't at his usual spot near the podium, nor was he mingling by the bar. Finally, her gaze settled on a secluded table in a quieter alcove, bathed in the soft glow of a single candle. There he was, and to her surprise, his posture was relaxed, a rare, almost vulnerable ease radiating from him. A genuine smile, not the tight, polite one he reserved for business, played on his lips. He was leaning in, listening intently to someone across the table. A jolt, sharp and unexpected, coursed through Eleanor as the other person shifted, turning slightly towards her. The angle was brief, a mere flick of the head, but it was enough. The broad shoulders, the familiar cut of the dark suit, the way his dark hair caught the light. No, it couldn't be. Her breath hitched. Mark Jensen. The same Mark Jensen she had denied a single day off, the very man who should be at home, presumably looking for new employment, or at the very least, not here. He was laughing now, a deep, easy sound, and her father's hand, in a gesture that twisted a knot in Eleanor's stomach, rested briefly, almost affectionately, on Mark's arm. Confusion battled with a rising tide of disbelief. Then a cold, hard anger began to curdle in her gut. What in God's name was he doing here? And why was her father looking at him like that? The revelation. The clinking of silverware and murmur of polite conversation faded into a dull roar in Eleanor's ears as she strode towards the linen-draped table. Mark, his head thrown back in laughter, his hand resting lightly on her father's arm, looked utterly at ease. A knot of cold fury tightened in Eleanor's stomach. She stopped abruptly beside them, casting a long, accusatory shadow over their shared mirth. "Mark," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise like a shard of glass. He flinched, his smile dissolving, and turned to face her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "I think you owe me an explanation." Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, dared him to deny it. Richard, until now oblivious to the storm brewing at his elbow, set down his champagne flute. His brow furrowed slightly as he took in Eleanor's rigid posture and Mark's sudden discomfort. "Eleanor, darling, What's wrong? You look as though you've seen a ghost." He then turned to Mark, a warm, indulgent smile returning to his face. "Mark, you haven't properly met my daughter, Eleanor, though I imagine you two have crossed paths." The casualness of his tone, the way he looked at Mark as if he were a valued friend rather than a recently dismissed employee, made Eleanor's blood run cold. "Crossed paths," she echoed, her voice laced with incredulity. "Father, what is he doing here? He was fired, yesterday, by me." Richard's smile remained, though a hint of amusement now played around his lips. He placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. "Fired? Oh, Eleanor, you do have a flair for the dramatic. Mark isn't simply here. He's been an invaluable advisor to me for months now." Eleanor stared, dumbfounded. The sophisticated hum of the room, the soft glow of the chandeliers, all seemed to blur. "An advisor?" she managed, the word a strained whisper. Richard nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at Mark. "Indeed. Quietly, diligently, he's been working with me on the Vance Legacy Philanthropic Project. A brilliant mind dedicated to making a real difference. He's been handling the entire operational framework. I specifically asked him to keep it under wraps, to avoid unnecessary fanfare until we were ready for the official announcement. His integrity, his commitment, it's truly commendable." He turned to Eleanor, his earlier amusement gone, replaced by a profound disappointment. "You see, Eleanor, while you were busy upholding company policy, Mark was busy changing the world." The clink of crystal against the hum of conversation was a dull backdrop to Eleanor's unraveling. Richard, his smile warm and genuine, rested a hand on Mark's shoulder. Mark, for his part, looked lighter, the lines of stress that Eleanor remembered etched around his eyes smoothed away, replaced by an easy humor as he recounted some anecdote that made Richard chuckle. "You see, Eleanor," Richard began, his voice cutting through the ambient noise like a surgeon's scalpel. "Mark and I had a lovely chat a few weeks back. He mentioned a predicament. His daughter, Lily, had a crucial school play, a part she'd worked incredibly hard for." Eleanor felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The memory of Mark's earnest, almost desperate plea, the way her own voice had dismissed it with clipped corporate jargon, flashed through her mind. "He told me how important it was to him to be there for her," Richard continued, his gaze unwavering on Eleanor, "and how he'd unfortunately run into a rather rigid interpretation of company policy regarding personal leave." The air in the opulent ballroom suddenly felt too thin, too heavy. Eleanor's cheeks flushed crimson. The intricate patterns on the antique rug seemed to swirl, mocking her. "It struck me," Richard said, a thoughtful expression on his face, "that a man who dedicates himself so completely to his child, to something so fundamental as family, possesses a rare kind of integrity. A man who understands true value beyond the bottom line." He paused, allowing the words to hang in the air, a silent indictment. Vance Corp, unfortunately, wasn't equipped to appreciate that particular strength in Mark. But I personally found it invaluable. He turned to Mark, a benevolent smile lighting his features. "So, I offered Mark an advisory role, consulting on my personal investment portfolio. A flexible arrangement, one where Lily's school plays or any other significant family event will always take precedence. His insights are remarkably sharp, and the results have been, shall we say, more than satisfactory." Mark offered Eleanor a small, almost apologetic smile, a gesture that only deepened her mortification. The man she had so casually dismissed, deemed expendable for a single day, was now not only gainfully employed by her own father, but was lauded for the very values she had so carelessly trampled. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. She hadn't just fired an employee. She had overlooked a man of profound character, a resource her father clearly valued above all else. The champagne tasted like ash in her mouth. A shift in perspective. The clinking of crystal and the murmur of polite conversation faded into a dull thrum as Richard turned his gaze to Eleanor. His smile, usually so warm, now carried a subtle weight. "Eleanor," he began, his voice soft but resonant. "You always had such a sharp mind for business. But sometimes, dear, I worry you let the numbers obscure the people." He gestured subtly towards Mark, who was now sharing a hearty laugh with a small group by the fountain. That young man, Mark, he understood the value of time, the kind of time that truly matters. A company policy, no matter how well intended, should never eclipse a father's desire to be present for his child. Eleanor felt a flush creep up her neck. Her father's words, gentle as they were, landed with the impact of a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples of discomfort and a dawning understanding. She watched Mark, unburdened, radiating a quiet joy she hadn't seen in him since his first year at Vance Corp. The stark contrast to her own rigid, policy-driven approach was undeniable. Later, finding Mark alone for a moment by the dessert table, Eleanor approached, her heart a tangled knot of regret and professional pride. "Mark," she began, her voice unusually hesitant. I wanted to apologize about the day off. I realize now—" She trailed off, searching for the right words, the corporate jargon suddenly feeling hollow. Mark turned, a serene expression on his face. He held a small tart, its sugary scent mingling with the perfume of the lilies nearby. "Eleanor," he said, his tone devoid of bitterness. "It's all right. I understand you had to uphold company policy. And, truthfully," he offered a small, knowing smile, "it was the best thing that could have happened." He gestured vaguely at the opulent ballroom, a silent testament to his new, comfortable reality. "My daughter had a wonderful birthday, and I found a path that allows me to be both a committed father and a valued professional." His acceptance was gracious